What makes the perfect site for you? Stick around. You're going to want to hear what we got to say and the questions we've got to ask.
What's your favorite kind of campground?
Stick around. Hi, I'm Wayne.
And I'm Norma from RVacationer.
Follow us as we travel in our motorhome and Jeep Cherokee.
Subscribe and click the notification bell.
When you make a cake, depending on what kind of cake you want or what flavor, you have different ingredients, but the process is the same. So picking out the perfect campground is almost the same as making a cake. You have to go through the same factors every time. So what are you looking for in this campground? Is it location? Is it cost? Is it the amenities? Is it the proximity to a tourist site? We're going to go through 7 categories here, 7 factors to consider every time you're trying to pick out the perfect campsite. Location, cost, amenities, ease of access, hookups, clubs that you have to be a member of to stay there, and the tools that we use to pick out the perfect campsite.
How do you make the decision on what type of campground that you want to stay in? If we're just traveling down the road for a one-night stay, we have stayed in truck stops, Cracker Barrels, Walmarts. If we really want to stay at a campground, KOAs are very close to the interstate, so we'll stay at those. The main reasoning between picking campgrounds is setting up a base camp. Where do we want to go and what is around us within a 2-hour radius? We try to set up in the middle of that area so that we can each day, if not travel over 2 hours, go do what we want to do and then come back, get to the campground at night, do the same thing over the next day.
So as an example to that, when we were up in Maine, we stayed at Bailey's RV Resort and we set up base camp there, so we stayed there almost 2 weeks, I think it was. That was pretty pricey, but we'll get into that attribute later. But the thing that attracted us to that area was it was central to the coast and the areas that we wanted to drive to, as well as we went to New Hampshire and Vermont to do just wildlife driving and scenery driving. We went to Mount Washington Cog Railway up there, so we set up a base point that was central to everything else. So that was our first priority, is where's the location.
Our second criteria is how much does the campground cost? Usually we try to stay at less expensive campgrounds, but we don't want to stay at one that's 3 or below. We like to pick campgrounds that have 4 and 5 ratings. We've stayed at free campsites like at a Walmart all the way up to $100+. Sometimes
I
if you're
mentioned Bailey's RV earlier, and that was definitely one of the more expensive campgrounds. But the area kind of dictates. If you want to be in that area, let's say you're going to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, or Gulf Shores, Alabama, or Yosemite, or Grand Canyon, or somewhere like that.
Some of the major locations.
You're stuck with paying premium prices for that area. One way we look at it is if we're just spending one night pulling off on the side of the road to sleep, getting up early the next morning to leave again, Walmart or Cabela's or a Cracker Barrel or a truck stop like a Love's or a Pilot, those would be tempting if we're just wanting to pull off, sleep, and get back on the road as early as we can in the morning to keep driving. A trip from Alabama to South Dakota or Montana is quite a few days, so we don't want to waste the time getting in. You've got to check into the campground before they close, preferably before dark. And once you get set up, I hate to just tear down the next morning, and especially if you're going to leave at 6 a.m. or whatever, you're going to make all the other neighboring campers irritated with you because cranking up the diesel engine to air up the airbags is not quiet. So cost is a primary factor, but keep relative to the location. This last trip that we went on through North Carolina, the Outer Banks, we did a lot of Corps of Engineers campgrounds, and we have a discount, Senior Citizens America, the Beautiful Pass, and it's a lifetime membership for us. So we get half prices, so ultimately we're paying anywhere from $7.50 to $15 a night for full hookups at the Corps of Engineer campgrounds. But you don't get the swimming pool and the playground and the maybe it has a laundromat, maybe it does not, but there's a lot of things you don't get staying at the Corps of Engineers.
But those are things that we don't really need. So.
That's true.
Our third criteria is amenities. And normally we don't need a lot of amenities, but we do have a campground that is fairly close to our home that we like to go and take our grandbabies. And it has lots of amenities for the grandbabies, so we really enjoy that, and so do they.
Yeah, they've got a splash pad and a playground and an activities
Beach,
room, a beach area for the lake,
places
fishing
to ride the
piers.
bikes.
Yeah, you can ride your bikes without fear. Keep in mind, we've been doing this for 30 some odd years, and we started out with a pop-up. At that time, we needed restrooms, bathhouses, laundromats. At that time, we needed those amenities. At this point in time, we're retired and we got something that has its own kitchen, refrigerator, bed, laundry, and all that kind of stuff. So we don't need those amenities. So for us, in our decision-making process, we don't necessarily look at the amenities. However, the nice to haves, let's say everything's equal down to the dollar for the price. If one has, we don't swim, but we like to go sit by the pool and cool off or relax. Sit under the umbrella and have a soft drink or something. But I do like Wi-Fi because we do stream. All of our TV comes from a streaming app, either Hulu or Amazon Prime. We don't do Netflix. All the TV we watch comes through a streaming app on our smart TVs. So we do like Wi-Fi. So if one has a better Wi-Fi than the other, we'll choose that one over. So location, where is it central to all the different things we want to see? What's the cost? If we can get it cheap, we'll take cheap with no amenities over high priced with all kind of amenities that we're not going to use. And then what was it? Location, cost, and then amenities is where we're at right now. Let us know in the comments below how you make your decision. What's your rank? Is cost the top priority or is bottom priority? Location, where do these things line up in your priority list when you're making the decisions? Please leave us a comment below, and by helping us, you're also helping to make better decisions, more informed decisions. I will say this, in the 3 and 4 and 5 star range, when we're looking at the reviews, we prefer 5-star, but that's usually comes with a $5 signs in front of the price as well. When we're deciding the review, we'll use all of our tools and Google and the photos from user support communities before we will look at the pictures on the campground's website, because they're only going to show you the better ones that make their campground look the best. We follow something like 60 or 70 other YouTube channels, so I like to see their decision-making process and also their reviews of the campgrounds, because those kind of things help us make our decision. If it's a choice between A and B and everything else is equal, we start looking at the pictures, photos, and YouTube movies.
A lot of times Wayne will get on there and look at the site maps to see the sites. Sometimes you can do a little on Google Maps as far as being able to find the entrance to the campground to get in.
Street view is key.
Street view.
Deciding how you're going to get into the campground.
Because a lot of campgrounds have narrow roads, curvy roads, trees that are hanging too low. So he tries to check all that out and make sure that our camper is going to fit in there before we actually pick a site like that. Especially lengthwise, because ours is 40 foot.
Yeah, the motorhome's 40 foot, and then we're towing a Jeep Cherokee behind that. So it's another 15 or so feet behind that.
So there's a good many campsites or campgrounds that we can't get into because of that.
We've learned recently of a tool that RV Life, their YouTube channel, has talked about it. I think it's actually sponsoring their channel to some degree. Campground Views, I believe it is. Campgroundviews.com is a website or an app that you can go to and actually be able to do something similar to Google's Street View, except it's inside the campground, where Google Street View stops at the campground gate or the turn off of the road. Google's only concerned with the road and the highway that goes by there, but this Campground Views gives you the ability to see the campground as if you were doing a Google Street View. Another thing I use is the satellite view. Sometimes you can see from a satellite image whether the campers are really close together or the turns are real tight, if they're all pull-throughs or if they're all back-ends, that kind of thing. So ease of access and getting into the campground and getting out of the campground is key for a lot of us. And you have to be aware of power lines and tree limbs and that kind of thing.
We actually had that happen to us one time, remember?
Yeah, we were going to Monument Valley. We stayed at the KOA in Flagstaff, and we actually had to get routed through somebody's yard to get around the low-hanging power lines. So that was kind of an adventure in itself, just getting to the campground.
A little scary. Our fifth criteria is full hookups. I know a lot of people have solar and batteries that keep you going. We like to get full hookups at the campground. We like 50 amp, water, sewer. We will stay at campgrounds that have just electric and water, that have a dump station, but we had rather have the full hookup to stay there.
Yeah, again, going back to one of our other points, if we're just spending one night, it's not very convenient to have to pull in, get hooked up, hook up the sewer and water and electric, and then 6 o'clock the next morning you're trying to unhook everything while everybody else is still asleep in the campground. So if we're going to be there for a while, like 4 days or longer, we really do prefer full hookups. In some cases, those are not available. Maybe you couldn't find a campground that had any space available for full hookup. So we can stay a week. I think we've done 4 days as the longest we've stayed with no sewer. But we prefer full hookups if we're going to be using our camper as a base camp. Another example of doing that is we were in Shediac, New Brunswick, Canada, and we drove all the way out to Peggy's Cove and Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, and over to Prince Edward Island. So it was a good trip from our campground to Peggy's Cove and Lunenburg, but it was a lot better to drive it's a Honda Civic that we were towing. It's a lot more practical to do that than it was to drive the motorhome all the way out there to spend 1 or 2 nights and then drive back and change setup. So we really needed full hookups at that point.
And another thing on the full hookup, if you're planning on doing laundry in your camper, you really need the full hookup, yeah.
If you like to take long hot showers, not naming names, but I'm okay to take a airplane bath. I've always been told under the wings and the tail is the airplane bath. If you do take a full shower and wash a load of clothes, your gray tank is going to be close to full after a couple of days, 2 or 3 days anyway.
Our sixth criteria are clubs. We only have a couple of clubs that we've joined. We have in the past been a KOA member. We're not right now, I don't think, are we? And we're also Good Sam's Club, FMCA. A lot of the clubs have campsites in areas where we're not normally going. You have to go on the coast for a lot of them to have a place to play, stay.
Or play.
Some of them you can't even figure out where they have them located unless you become a member. Some of them are very pricey. We just like to go where we like to go and not have to worry about, is there a campsite in this area that's going to give us a discount.
And if you're full-time, you have a need that we don't have. We still have sticks and bricks that we can go back to. We're not necessarily weekend warriors. We like to take long 3 or 4 week trips at a time, and we'll go away and then get tired of being there. We'll come home and play with our grandbabies for a while, and then we'll go again. So a lot of these memberships are very costly, and they are very helpful if you're living in your RV or motorhome. The price for like Thousand Trails, for example, that's cost prohibitive to us because no more than we count, we couldn't justify the yearly expense and the initial cost to stay at the coast areas, the East Coast, Southern Coast, and then up California and Washington. They're all over the place in those areas. But Midwest, Montana, Iowa, Michigan, I don't think there's very many in those areas, if any. So anyway, that's just one example. So there's Harvest Host, Passport America, Escapees, Escapers. Hip Camp is a new one that's come. Well, they're not new, but really becoming popular now. We just basically we have the America the Beautiful Pass for seniors, and we like to stay at Corps of Engineers if there are any of those available. And if there's not a Corps of Engineer anywhere close to the areas that we're wanting to go to, we will say, okay, well, that doesn't fit our needs for this trip, so what's our next best option? If you're a member of a club, put the name of the club below and why you use that club membership.
Our seventh criteria are tools that Wayne uses to plan our trips.
She's blaming all this on me. If we don't book good, then it's my fault. If we book good, it was her idea. Yeah. That's just the way it goes. I use primarily RV Trip Wizard, and a lot of the tools are similar and do a lot of the same things. There's a lot of overlapping capabilities in the tool set, but RV Trip Wizard has one that's unique for me anyway, and that is elevation grade. So if your grade is more than 5% and it's more than 5 or 6 miles, I like to know that before we get into that area so I can kind of plan for. So that's just an extra challenge, and it's a piece of information I'd rather know ahead of time than find out while we're on the road. So I use RV Trip Wizard, and that is also an app called RV Life Pro, and that helps us review the campgrounds all in one tool. So if I know we're going to leave our home and we want to go to Michigan, then we'll find the end destination, and then between here and there we'll find campgrounds that are within a 4-hour drive of each stop. And I like that feature that it puts a circle around your 4-hour radius from here. From this stop, here's 4-hour radius from here, and so you just follow the interstate or the highway that you're going to be using. That lets you find the campgrounds, and you can review the campgrounds directly from that tool. We also use RV Parky, and then anytime I find a campground that I think suits our needs, I'll go to Google, search that campground, and then click on the photos where other people like us and you have posted pictures about that campground. This is what we saw. The dumpsters were full, or the bathrooms were dirty, or it's immaculate and the flowers are beautiful, or whatever you see. I like seeing that from other people like us that have posted just their trips pictures, and it is what it is at that time. So I like knowing what the reality is rather than what the polished advertisements are. So that's how we plan our trips. Watch YouTube videos as well. So there's other tools available out there. So if you use different tools, please put them in the comments below and let us know what you use and what it does for you that you like better than any other planning tool. And I like RV Trip Wizard because once you're done, it gives you kind of a pseudo budget of here's how much fuel we're going to spend, how many miles we're driving, how much the nightly campground fees are. So you can send that to a spreadsheet, and you've got a printed notes of exactly where you're going, how to get there, and how much it's going to cost per day. And you can adjust plus or minus. If you're doing good on the budget, you go out to eat Dairy Queen, and if you're not doing good on the budget, you eat a can of Viennas with crackers that night or whatever. So it gives you a good baseline, and I like sending that to me so we have a printed copy of what's going on before we ever leave the house. And that way, if you get somewhere and you don't have cell signal or computer Wi-Fi access, so if you got the printed version, then you're a step ahead. So again, we did this because this is kind of how the criteria we use to pick the campgrounds, and each trip is a little different. Like we said, we stayed at Bailey's RV Resort in Maine one time, and it was $100 a night or close to that. I don't remember exactly. That's been several years ago. But we paid that premium because it was in the base camp area that we wanted to be able to drive to New Hampshire and Vermont and the beach and all the areas that we wanted to see. So we picked that area. Then other times, if we're just wanting to go read a book and kick our shoes off and sit in the zero gravity lounge chairs and feel the breeze and listen to the birds chirp, then we're definitely not going to pay $100 a night because there's a pool over there that we're not going to use. Each trip kind of dictates the priority list of our attributes that we use to choose a campground. Let us know in the comments what you think, how you decide which campgrounds you're going to use, and what do you define as your preferred must-haves for the sites that you book. Hi friends, thank you for joining us on this video. If you would, if you have not already, we need a real big favor. Not like a kidney or a lung or anything, just a real big favor. Hit that subscribe button right down there, that red one, right in there. And when you hit that, you'll see a little bell. Click on the bell so you get notified of all our future videos. And give us a thumbs up. We would appreciate it very, very much. Thank you. Have a great day. See you in the next video.
Nothing can ever change the way I feel about you. promise I will stay.